Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this wild conversation here at Twin Cities Diversity in Practice. As we get started, I just want to go over a few webinar features. All attendees are on mute. We do welcome your questions. If you have questions, please go ahead and type those into the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that those get addressed. If we do need to restart this webinar for any reason, we will email you a new link. And we are recording this session. This summer, we started Wild to harness the collective power of TC-DIP's membership to remedy systemic anti-Black racism in the Twin Cities by partnering with and amplifying the work of existing community organizations. So thank you all for joining us to support the mission of the Wanted and Justice Legal Detail. I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Lucas Castor. Lucas is a civil rights and plaintiffs employment lawyer at Nichols Castor. He's a member of the Minnesota Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and he is our Emerging Leaders Group recruiting lead. And with that, I will turn it over to Lucas and our guest.
Thanks, Liz. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As Liz gave the introduction, we're here now for, I think, what is our 7th installment of Wild Conversations, and specifically on the issue of addressing systemic racism and community safety. And as Liz was alluding to, the purpose of these are to be informative, to inform our member organizations and our member representatives and employees, but also the community at large about what the different proposals out are in the public in the Twin Cities for police reform. And we're excited today to welcome William Harris, otherwise known as Truth Mays. He's a hip hop icon in the Twin Cities, born and raised, as I understand from the other day. He's a scholar, he's a drummer, an activist, and in particular, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to Truth today was his involvement with the organization Reclaim the Block. So Truth, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah,
it's good to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We had a great conversation the other day, so I'm excited to see where this goes this afternoon now. But let's start a little bit about just you as an individual. I referenced the fact that you were born and raised here. Can you give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, why you got involved in the music scene?
Oh yeah, I hope to be able to do that. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was born in 1968, and this was before HCMC. So what they call the old General Hospital, as I grew up knowing. My parents lived each on both sides of the city, meaning North and South Minneapolis. As a very young baby boy, I grew up in what was called the projects in North Minneapolis, which gave me a very beautiful kind of start, because it was such a rich community experience, even though I was really little, but it felt so beautiful. And so I grew up primarily, it's North and South Minneapolis, and I've had, I would say, a tumultuous upbringing, a lot of beauty and a lot of ugly. I got into music primarily because I was born doing it, and being very expressive and being one that sought knowledge and experience in every which way I could, whether it was nature, whether it was watching Jacques Cousteau, Sesame Street, come on. And so, I don't know, I grew up around a lot of music, and I grew up around, I'll say, a family conscious of its connectedness via the elders that kept us together. And they recognized in me some things I could not see. And so that's a little bit about me. So once again, it's good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. We hadn't met before the other day, so I did some looking around, and I saw some of your music. But give us a brief kind of rundown of of what your music is, what you're interested in, some things you've done in the music scene.
I would have to say, you know, one thing I've been called is a Renaissance artist, and you know, I don't know really if I hold that totally. I appreciate it, and what I do honor in that being called a Renaissance artist at one particular time is that I feel like you know, like I grew up around like the original stuff that would then become the samples that hip hop artists would use. I grew up in a time when your aunts and your great grandmother and grandmother loved to see you get up and dance, you know, and dancing and that connectivity. You know, I know it's part of the fabric of what then would become how I would then express myself further. Had it would have been another time I fantasized this way, I probably would have been a jazz musician. I probably would have been a bop musician. I probably would have been a classical musician, because just being artistic and using music as an expression, as a key expression, is something I was born with through my hands. So they call this a thing these days. I would have to say it's like ancestral retention. The reason why I played traditional drums, and which is my truest voice, even above hip hop, my truest voice is found in traditional West African rhythm and the philosophy that goes with that. And so hip hop is, you know, is a baby of all of that. And you know, and my music primarily is about being conscious. My music is about my pain. My music is about my truth. My music is about my activism. My music is about Black consciousness, and also peoplehood. I like consciousness in any shade. Doesn't matter. You know, if you can feel it, you can connect to the vibe, you understand the language and the context of the language, then we connect as people. And that's with any music, personally.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I wanna, you know, you brought up your activism, and I'm interested in, you know, how you make, you know, I don't know if transition is the right word, but how do you bridge the gap between the music and your music identity and the activist part of you?
Well, you know, okay, so wow. A little story. How I'm still discovering that.
Yeah.
But you know, people like the OJs had a song out called "Got to Give the People What They Want," and I grew up listening to that, and I didn't even understand the impact of it. I didn't understand the impact of Tysel Nelson getting killed, and then me becoming part of the first rap group to come out of the North Side, talking about things like the typical things rappers were talking about. But we did a song called "America Disease" because hip hop was very informative for us. What we weren't hearing in the news, hip hop was talking about. Like, if it wasn't for Biz Markie, I'd have never heard. I would have never knew the name Shirley Chisholm. I had to go and find out who Shirley Chisholm was, because Biz Markie, a beatboxer from New York, Queens, New York, said Reagan was the prez, but I voted for Shirley Chisholm. I wanted to know who Shirley Chisholm was. Don't the schools here wasn't teaching me who Shirley Chisholm was. I was in Minneapolis. They weren't teaching us nothing about, you know, culture. So I feel like it is a process of coming into oneself. Like, I cannot not do what I do. It's natural, right? And my environment showed me that it was natural, as well as my environment showed me what was unhealthy. And so there's an intersection there when it comes to activism and art.
Yeah, and so you know, Reclaim the Block, I mentioned that earlier, is, you know, an organization now that's involved in doing police reform and advocating for police reform. And I'm interested how you got in and connected with Reclaim the Block, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but let's start there.
Well, interesting enough, I found myself hurt. I found myself very determined, and I found myself willing to be with any and all people that were thinking of how we could do something new in the face of such a drastic presence and such a jarring presence that the uprising and that the murder of George Floyd was and is, right? So I was planning on how to create my own organization. I was planning on how to bring Black people together, or African American people, or however we like to be defined, how we could come together, and also ourselves look at where are we stratifying at, like, and how can we create more unity. Basically, I just wanted more unity in the face of what was happening, and however that could come. That's still a work I'm still looking to do with Black people in general. So we Reclaim the Block, literally the story is a friend of mine whom has a lot of disdain for seeing a lot of white leadership showed up disgruntled and pissed off on my porch and was like, this organization's hiring. I was like, get out of here. I never thought you could get hired, or someone is putting out a call to call in people that want to work as activists or organizers. And I actually laughed and I said, one, I didn't think they would hire me because of my orientation and my identity, Two, I didn't even think that was possible. So that person told me they did it. They didn't get hired for some reason while I was traveling. Oh, no, for some reason they didn't get hired. I don't know why. I put in my application. I was traveling with my wife and checked an email one day and it was like, we would like to offer you this position. I was like, what? What? Now, that's it. That's how it happened. And I have been thoroughly in the position of being a student this whole entire time, but also bringing along my life experience. And this is how I became part of Reclaim the Block.
And you said you got hired for this position. What's your role there? Is that stayed the same?
I'm a neighborhood organizer. I would like to also say that I've expanded that title to be neighborhood and cultural organizer strategist. I'm looking at how culture can inform our misinformation and how it should inform our misinformation. Just one example, directly speaking to a young organizer and activist in North Minneapolis, who's of Southeast Asian descent, informed me that we should work together because they're looking at how to confront anti-Blackness in their community and using culture as one of the ways to break that down. I was like, well, we need to have cultural conversations then and not colonists conversations about what we don't understand then. And they told me, whoa, let's do it. Let's get some other people together and let's build and let's correlate, let's work.
Yeah. And so how do you describe, if somebody's listening who's not familiar with Reclaim the Block, has never heard anything about Reclaim the Block, how would you describe to that person what the objective is and why the organization exists?
Well, first off, it's a multicultural group of people, and it's predominantly more white representatives in the organization who can tell you themselves that they're focusing on getting the Black voice out, the BIPOC voice in front. Representing the BIPOC voice is not what the focus is or the intention is. It just so happened that Reclaim the Block was already doing work around how to be a part of the policy process, how to influence policy, and then on to the charter and how to do all of which was stuff that I totally was anti, but silly me, not knowing, you can't just be upset and then not be out here making some moves to actually make some change, to be involved in real processes that bring about or can possibly bring about change. So as I see Reclaim the Block's work is empowering the community via an abolitionist mind frame, mind state, using the abolitionist frame as a way to empower people back into the power that they have, the power that is able to move mountains, or at least to move some numbers. We'll work on the mountains,
Right,
continuously,
right.
right? And this is the objective. Like, just briefly, the idea of defunding the police is not some like parlor conversation, easy peasy type of thing. We're like talking about the weather. We're talking about how do we transform something that historically comes out of something that has never been good for people. And mostly now what we're seeing is that it's not good for Black people and people of color and marginalized population. So my queer family and all folks of melanated of hue, so we have to have a conversation about that. And so Reclaim the Block is about the work of having those conversations, and having the conversation about what it takes to get people aware of what it is that their involvement in the process of change is. Really basic, as I see it.
Yeah. And you referenced what you call the mindset, and you said it was an abolitionist mindset. And I'm interested if you can dive a little bit deeper into, from the perspective of Reclaim the Block, what that mindset means and how that's carried out.
Yeah, okay. And then I want to say disclaimer. I'm not here to present like these ultimate facts or this ultimate truth, y'all.
Yeah.
I am still a child, very much, and continuously learning, and I mean that sincerely. Okay, so with that being said, my personal, here goes a personal reference of that first, okay?
Yep.
Not knowing how destructive some of the models of manhood I picked up growing up, not knowing, not even owning just how whack my lack of understanding of how my actions really affect my environment, is a point of a place of reference of where abolition was needed and is needed, right? Freeing myself, freeing my intentionality from a place that was really just toxic and wasn't good, right? So we go ahead and look at that. An abolition mindset is rooted in freedom that you create, that is yours because you created through your will. The concept to me of abolition is how do I get free and how can I show someone else to get free, right? Free, and free can be as broad as we want it to be. Like, how is it that like I can be more effective in my community when I can have a direct connection to some of the problems and ills if I liberate myself from being ineffective, like take the ownership and the agency to know that I can be leader filled, and not leader fooled, right?
Yep.
I can be leader filled and I can go out here and I can learn to work in collaboration and in solidarity with people that have some of the same wishes, yet we need more connection and more reliance. And like, even like, can I look at you and know that me and you can have each other's back, even though it's been said that we should have differences?
Yeah.
Okay, can we broaden our possibilities?
Yeah, and in thinking about what you're saying, I mean, obviously we're talking about this abolitionist mindset in the specific perspective of police reform. But it's interesting to me the way you sort of broaden it out in the sense of, we're talking about, you gave an analogy to a different situation where I need to get rid of something that was holding me back in my personhood, in how I interact in the world. And I'm interested how you see that transitioning to the specific police reform idea.
Okay. Well, so, I think it's very important to notice, like, say, where there are more liquor stores and less institutions that help build people's character and gives them reason to want to contribute into their community, to then to be a fosterer of what is beneficial. You know, I mean, like, it, you know, we need resources for that. Like, so where there are no resources for that, we can look and see where there are resources, you know, being placed in systems and you know, practices that really have not ever proven to actually be better, but we believe that it will. See, that's the thing. If I believe you, even if I can't prove that what you're saying is not true, if you get me to believe you, I have something to hold on to, even if it's like fake, even if it's like a plastic flower. But if I believe, if I need to have some of these in my house so it looks like I have life happening, then I'll have plastic flowers. So when I look at what the issue is with our policing system, it's like, where else can this money go to where it's very much needed, and where you individual, where if that's your occupation, which is to stop crime and not come to the aid of someone who is having a psychotic break, uh, 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 you know, like, and then not handle the situation right, you know, just like rubber meets the road, like, you know, thinking here, you know. So for me, it's like money needs to be used for other things, just basically, you know. I don't see why the disconnect is misunderstood, like where we have a lack of programs in schools that fortify one's internal self, which then can prove to be beneficial for them in the broader world. You know, we're gonna have problems. So I mean, there's a real issue there. Where are we not putting our money in our mouth at? You know,
Yeah,
speak truth to power. So
yeah, and I'm, you know, what you were saying makes me think of something that I had during a conversation with another one of our guests on one of these conversations, and she asked me a question while we were having a conversation in prep for what was our eventual wild conversation, and I'll ask the same or a similar question to you because it transitions from what you were just talking about. And what she essentially asked me was, what are we believing as a society or as a city, or however you want to define that? What are we believing about the police and what the police is giving us that isn't true?
whoa. Oh wow. That is like, I feel like that's like the bonus question that was supposed to be asked later. You asked it early.
Right.
Oh.
And maybe I'll give you a minute. And while I'm giving you a minute, I'll tell you, she asked that question to me, right? Um, and you know, she during the prep session, she asked it to me during our actual wild conversation. And what I said, you know, is I said, you know, it's interesting because I come from the background of you know, I was born and raised in South Minneapolis, but I also did work in the you know, the criminal defense world, and so I have a suspicion or a questioning of law enforcement from that experience. But I said, if I think back to sort of growing up in South Minneapolis and my perspective before being exposed to the criminal defense world, if I'm honest with myself, I think what it gives me is a perception of comfort and security. And I don't, now knowing what I know, I don't think the police give us any type of comfort or security. It's a perceived comfort and security, but in reality, for the entire community, it's not. So that was my answer to her, and I'm interested in what your answer is. Whether you agree, disagree with me.
Ooh. Okay, so let me bring it all together here, because it's a very complex question. It's simple and deep. Let me just say that, because most things are. What I don't look to get. Let me start there. I don't look to find my personal safety outside of myself.
Hmm.
I just don't. I know that, I've been made to believe a certain something is real. So for so long, I grew up watching a lot of cop shows. I grew up not knowing, at a certain point in time, I should stop watching those because the narrative that's being spun is actually connected to a mind control scenario that is not a conspiracy and that is very real, just as real as someone can say, if you keep listening to that negative music, it's going to have an effect on your life.
Right. Right.
So what I don't do, what I don't do first is think that my safety, it's like even joy, my joy comes from nobody but myself, right? My safety could never come from the police, right? Can I say that I don't honor the work of individuals that want to be individuals that want to work, be in the capacity of really what it is being protectors of, like my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper, like there's that. In my hip hop freestyle spoken word world, that'd be dope. But you know what I'm saying? So in the real sense, like I think the dilemma is, at least once again for myself, and not speaking on behalf of Reclaim the Block.
Yep.
The dilemma is it's not what we say, but it's actually what is actually being done. The dilemma is like I can tell you anything, but what comes out in the wash, you know what I mean, is what it is. So you can tell me everything. You can tell me to keep hope alive. And then all of a sudden, if I see that you have a multiple areas where hope just don't seem to be working for you, then really I don't think I can actually believe that.
Right. Right. And I think,
It's
go ahead.
oh no.
All right. So one of the other things that you were talking about is I think one of the particular things that we've heard generally since last summer, and that Reclaim the Block's talking about, is this sort of reallocating of funds. And I'm interested in what that concept now. I think most people understand what the concept is in terms of taking reallocating funds from the police department, giving them to other community organizations. I'm interested in if Reclaim the Block has, specific areas where they're saying that money should go, and what Reclaim the Block thinks that those organizations will do alternatively to police.
I okay. So once again, it's such a it's a broader scoped you know need, right? And it's not easy to like just condense um even what the possible outcomes are,
Sure.
in dreaming and looking into where we need once again to put resources and dreaming what that could be. It could look like that we're looking at how to keep people home, like housed, like like when it comes to like health and the health of the community, the mental health of the community, the spiritual health of the community. I mean, once again, there's some dissonance where, like, to me, where there is not enough resources, people start to create all types of ideas of how they can get those resources, and why they should get those resources. So for me, I look at the areas of rebuilding community that has agency in it, where it can be given the resources to create what it needs for itself. To me, would be wise, instead of that being like not good. Like, so like I could name a few different things, like like when I think about the indigenous populations, and a lot of, like, say, even like an issue with the environmental racism that's happening right now in Little Earth. that's not even being addressed properly, that could be fixed with some money. I'm just saying, some money and some heart and some people with big tools and, you know, degrees and things like that. But if that's not what you're trying to invest in, then it's not important. So the people, to me, have to stop being duped into believing that they are not strong enough to say at the top of their lungs and at the top of their hearts, we need some of what you're not sharing. It comes from out of us, and it's supposed to be for us. Let's get some FUBU for us, by us. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, it's that, like, you know, and so where the issue is when it sounds like that's crazy. Like, okay, then that's that's crazy. Well, I understand why it sounds just as crazy when someone says, well, if you say defunding, but that's gonna create more crime. Well, I'm like, that's kind of crazy because the crime wasn't stopping before anybody said defund.
Right. Right.
It just wasn't. It just wasn't. So now jump on the word defund. I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
let's be smart here.
And I think, you know, it's interesting what you're saying is, you know, and maybe I'll transition this to specifically in terms of reclaim the block.
Okay.
Do you are you guys making a conscious effort to have those discussions within the organization and the community members? Because I think, you know, one of the things I see oftentimes in that I struggle with is, I think in particular with leaders who are in positions of or elected positions or positions of authority who are making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they're making decisions that I believe or assume in some senses are being made without talking to the communities who are impacted by them. That they're assuming that what their decisions are making are the best for that community without actually talking or conferring with the community. So, you know, I'm interested in, you know, Reclaim the Block, in that the organization that you're involved in. Like, is that one of the conscious things of the organizations to have those discussions, not necessarily going in with an end objective, but saying we're going to let the people lead the objective of where this goes?
Yeah. Okay. So like you're on it. Like, I'm gonna say that is what to me planting the seeds of abolition and liberation are about. Like, if you don't know that the rope that first used to be a chain, like that's on your ankle, right? This is seriously, this is something we can look up. This is a training technique, right? This is how you literally can control someone's psyche, right? So first the elephant has a chain and he sees you with the whip and there's the chain. Thinks that you're gonna hit him because then there's the chain. Now you got the whip. You could take the whip away, and that's now it's just the chain, right? Yeah. So the elephant doesn't know it can break the chain. Then the trainer takes away the chain and uses a rope. The elephant doesn't even know it can break the rope. As strong and powerful as this large vegetarian, super vegan, super vegan, right? Earth super vegans, right? Super strong, does not think it can break the rope. So in that sense, we look at that, what we've learned ever since the creation of policing, from the patty rollers, birth of a nation. We can go way back and bring it all the way cursor forward. We can talk about all the cops, you know what I'm saying, that was doing stuff like in the 80s. Man, they were the drug dealers too. But they was in uniform. They wasn't sagging, you know what I'm saying? They didn't have hats tilted. You feel me?
Yeah.
So when I think about what, Reclaim the Block is talking about, is remember these things, y'all. Like, know this, and know that our country even said, because I'm a super patriot. I am. I'm a serious patriot. I'm an indigenous person. I'm from here, you know what I'm saying, from these lands. My ancestors have been here for a long time, and I feel like if I can't look at whom calls themselves leaders and tell them honestly that what you're doing is just foul, wrong, and you don't need to lead, then that means that I'm really not who I say I am.
Mhm.
And you know, so you know, in a sense, Reclaim the Block's work is, look, let's talk about this. This is our way of looking at this is our campaign, but it's not like you got to eat this. No, you're not shoving this down your throat.
Yeah.
There's many ways to get things accomplished. There's multiple ways. What they say, there's what the skin a cat, that whole thing. Yeah, but you know, right now the conversation is queer Black-led leadership. You know,
Yep.
powerful feminism, force behind what we believe in, saying we need to return some things back because they belong to in us, right?
Yep.
And it's our power to act and do what's right in the face of what's not right. And so that's not new. This is
Yep.
we can look at, and then we can look at Seattle. This is very recent. I mean, excuse me, yeah, Seattle's work,
Yep.
Austin. There's just to name a few where things are actually happening. That communities are making change, and that even some of the local and state governments are willing. They're saying, yeah, we do need to do something different, because in the long run, what you're going to do is stop more of what is destructive from happening, because that's what people will do. Look at the Capitol. I mean, look at the not the Capitol. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, like, right? That thing was created out of what gets done in day-to-day American society.
Hmm.
It's part of the culture of America. So
and I'm, you said something the other day while we were talking, that I thought was very profound in the context of this discussion, and this concept that we're talking about in the sense of police reform. Is you were talking about the saying of, once you know better, you can do better, and you said, well, that's not enough. We got to do more than just know better and do better. So explain to me. I won't tell the punchline, but so I'll let you do that. Explain to me what you said the other day.
Okay, first off, there's a disadvantage because I was in the kitchen cooking. So there's something that happens in my kitchen when I'm cooking and I am in the zone.
Yeah.
I can't explain that. I got it from my grandma and them. But it's like there's this connectivity and this realizing of even the need to keep on expanding, right? So at one point in time, I heard some very deep things, right? And I was like, word, they were very deep. I felt like I understood them. I felt like there was a connectedness, like, let's just say it was even Einstein's, I love Einstein because we have the same birthday, right? So, what is it? Imagination is greater than knowledge. I was, yeah, that's so deep. Ooh, I didn't really get it though. I didn't really get it. I didn't really get it. I didn't really get it until
didn't get it.
I liked it, but I did not get it. I didn't get it until like just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful. Hopefully I'll get to wake up on my birthday. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, let alone wake up on my birthday. But I'll be like one more year into the ability to learn and to hopefully hold something new and different in my body, right? So, in speaking of knowing something and doing better, to me, until it's really realized and it becomes visceral, it's cosmetic. It's the margin of what I'm saying, of some things. It ain't, and so I feel like that's something I've realized, and I feel like in a lot of these situations, we can apply that to what we're experiencing in our political climate.
Yeah.
Just because people say a thing, it does not mean that it's something that I'll say for myself. I'm not going to believe something much more that somebody else says out of their body than what I'm saying to me inside my body that I have to hold true. You feel me?
Yeah.
And you know, and at the end of the day, when people get to trying to suss that out in others, that's what we get everything all to. Mind your business. Do what you do right. And hopefully what'll happen is people will see that in evidence.
Yeah.
Then what'll happen is what you know better is done better because it'll be seen in evidence. Period. Right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, it was interesting to me and what you're talking about, and I think where this connects to this idea of what you're saying, you know, about police reform is, you know, understanding the history of where the police force came from and why it was created and its impact on today. And it's not just about knowing that so you can do better going forward, but we have to sort of unlearn the conditioning that you're referencing, right? We have to, it's not just knowing better and then trying to do better. It's actually physically unlearning the conditioning that we've had up to this point. Right?
Seriously.
And I think that, you know, is such an important point because unless we, you know, the conversation we had the other day, unless we change that mindset, we can do better, but it's not going to have an impact.
Well, yeah. So look, so I can do better too. Like I can go back to school, and I can level up, like Beyonce said. You know, I can be doing better, right? And I'm just using this loosely. You know, I can advance myself in life and be doing better. You know what I mean? And then that's all I'm focused on. And as long as me and mine are fine, great. You know, I got enough in the bank, blah, 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 blah. I got more letters behind my title, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's all good. But you know, the pendulum is very interesting in that when, you know, it's kind of funny, like, because like in my experience, it's like, yeah, I can look like something that I'm not. And at the same time be exactly the opposite of that. So let me, you know what I'm saying, like in my neighborhood in Chanhassen, you know, in my church neighborhood, my church community, and everything I visit out there, you know, I'm great. But you know, a couple of sex workers might know me as a royal a couple of people that know that, you know, that they do what they do and you cool with it because there's some benefit out of it, know you as a different person.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
When you go and you get done up the way you like to get done up, that you know that they're supposed to be on the low, they know you as a different person. I'm just saying. Right. And so I you know, so my culture and my politics, they meet, because what I'm saying to y'all right now, I mean, I'm not Mr. Perfect, but things I just can't do no more don't happen in my house. And if they're happening in the street, I'm avoiding them. And if I can possibly do something to, you know, shift the energy, I will. But my personal work is to make sure that I can show up and be present so that I can have intention. If it's, you know, period. It should, you know, it shouldn't be separate, right? The left hand and right hand. Come on now. I get that. That sometimes it's cool, but
yeah. So what do you see? And you can answer this from, you know, what you understand to be the objective of Reclaim the Block. You can answer it from your personal perspective. But, you know, as you sit here right now, and we're talking about this idea of police reform and allowing the community to sort of lead that discussion, where do you see, like, if you could jump forward 10, 20, 30 years, do you see any type of, like, the police force as we see them today? What do you see? It's another bonus question for this.
Off the record, no, just kidding. You know, as an individual, personally, and not speaking for Reclaim the Block, I'll start there first. It's hard. It's hard to let go. It's hard to let go of bad habits. It's hard to let go. It's hard to first admit when you're addicted, even. Let's just use it that way. It's hard for white supremacy to see itself. And I ain't even talking about, just in terms of whiteness. I'm saying as a mindset, even a lack mentality, can be very similar. If I don't believe that I'm worthy to be anything other, I will stay where I'm at and I will keep finding appropriate masks for that mode and that state of being. Unless I fall all the way apart and you find me on the floor flailing and foaming at the mouth. I'm saying, this thing is not nothing to, it's nothing to take lightly in our world where we're still seeing folks get killed by police. And seemingly now it seems like we're being like primed, and we're being groomed so that it's okay, so that it's gonna be okay, because this is the way it feels to me in my head. This is the way I'm looking at it. Like, it's starting to become, it's the judicial system, the police officers. It's starting to be like, we have reason to do this, and people are saying get rid of us, and look at this right here. This is why we shouldn't be gotten rid of, right? When you're showing up and with all of this equipment, training, and lack thereof of sensitivity, cultural knowledge, and what have you. I mean, maybe, once again, I mean, I'm asking too much. Maybe you can't occupy all that at the same time, or let that fuel you at the same time. Know that your gun does not have to be used to kill when you pull it out, because you know that you can kill. It's like, I know if I know I can already beat somebody physically, do I look more like a hero, or do I look more like a barbarous dolt? What do I look like? You know what I mean? Like, so when I think about what police will be and where they're going to go, personally, on a personal note, it's only going to become more sophisticated and get even worse, because the prison industrial complex is supported by us, whether we like to support it or not. We support the prison industrial complex. Everybody on this call, in some kind of way. And so the new slavery is more sophisticated, and it's in the form of, supposed to be rationally on point. So it's we I'm saying, these guys are bad. They need to be put away. And I'm not even at all ever advocating that there shouldn't be certain circumstances where, there's that's a person, there's certain things I just have a cap with, that that people can commit. I got a cap. It's a personal thing. But I'm talking about now, this is a big industry. So going to jail is an industry. It's like rap music. It ain't hip hop no more. It's rap. So, you know what I mean? It's not hip hop. So, and it's a big industry, and it's not going to go away as long as it's making money. No, and it's constantly going to do what it does. It doesn't like rap music. Rap music feeds you nothing that leads you to more introspection or a deeper sense of self, or wanting to expand yourself. It doesn't. It's low vibrational, and that's what it feeds. So I look at what Reclaim the Block is doing, once again, is hopefully giving the people the reminder again, to have the wherewithal to stand up and make some change yourself, because no one is going to come in and save you. The same people that are saying don't get rid of the police, if something happens in their neighborhood that is not the neighborhoods where we typically want to say, oh yeah, that kind of thing that happens there, right? But when it happens in your neck of the woods, which is a whole different demographic and reality, and the police are not there to save you from whatever the tragedy or the circumstance is. It's once again, I'm not saying that that's an argument for just to say get rid of police, but it's like, We're saying stop funding people that want to kill you legally, and not get prosecuted the same way I do, because I'm not a cop, so I'm not as important, right? Why not? Why not? You know,
Yeah.
why not?
And
So,
what you said at the end, I think is an interesting thing. You were talking about, somebody who might be um, talking or proclaiming their support for police reform or claim the block, but if something happens in their own neighborhood. And I think, that's one of the things the challenges that I've seen personally. I live right back where I grew up now, in South Minneapolis. The immediate neighborhood I live in is predominantly white, I would say. And in the months after last summer, there were all people out. There were, people with all their signs. There were people on the neighborhood websites talking about this stuff. But then in the last 5-6 months, there has been, or not, I guess more recently than that, there's been an uptick in crime. At least what people perceive to be an uptick in crime. And I'm wondering what happened to that discussion that was happening back last summer, and how people are connecting those two concepts in terms of the position they were in last summer and their reaction to, what might be happening in their neighborhood, and how you connect those things. And I think you hit on something the other day that I want to make sure to get in. I know we're running out of time. We're getting to the end of the hour here. And if anybody has questions, they can throw them in the chat box. I'll try to read them out to truth. But, one of the things you hit on yesterday that I want to make sure to touch on is we were talking about, obviously, police reform and this concept of police. And you hit on something that I haven't heard somebody else hit on in this particular way. You said it's rooted in a lack of civility. And you were just kind of talking about that concept, in that just because you can kill somebody or you have the authority to do it doesn't mean you should do it. Even if they're disobeying you or doing something that you perceive a certain way. And I'm interested about how you came, and I know you were cooking, so that might have been one of those, moments.
No.
But,
I got you.
Interested in where you came to that idea.
Well, I come to that idea, once again, it's all from personal knowledge of myself, and in the pursuit of more knowledge of self. I could say it's as simple as me knowing that when you go and you register to be a concealed and carry individual, the training says first do this, okay, and then the training also says the training also says, and if that doesn't work, then you do this. And then the training says, when all else fails, your last resort is this, okay, this final step you take, right? It's very clear. And it's very clear. It's like, it doesn't say, you know what I'm saying? Ride out. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say, now you're the new sheriff in town.
Right.
It doesn't say you can run down the street with an AK and try to help the police and be popping people and taking chunks of their body out. You know what I mean? It doesn't say that. So my point is, as I look at, a lack of civility is shown when I think that my authority is unreproachable. Like, you can't tell me nothing. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to mess with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so for real. So this is a very American reality, though, that we seem to be very comfortable in, because we resort to it very quickly, as soon as possible. As soon as the the winds of change or whatever whatever doesn't float our boat feel right, we'll go there 0 to 100 really quickly. So it's like I don't, like there's a lot that needs to be undone. Of course, we know this, right? But like I know that I don't have to kill somebody who is telling me that they want to kill me. And I've had that happen in real life. Real threats in real life. This happened. We're gonna do this to you. Wow, for real? It's okay. All right.
Yeah.
If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Does it have to happen? No. But we live in when race coats things. This is very interesting because when race coats a thing, especially especially when you guys know that guy, when that guy was saying all the stuff he was saying, he was actually justifying the mindset of a lot of folks who don't have personal power because they believe in a leader who will also fuel like the weakness of our character. Like I can sit at home and be a TV gangster all day and say it's okay that black person should have got caught because that's what they deserve, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we don't think the same when it's a non-black person.
Mm-hmm.
But we even think even lesser when it's a person who's maybe of Asian descent or of Latinx descent or a number of things with our American. We be tripping because we have this mindset that is rooted in white supremacist thought and values.
Right.
And until that's checked, we can't nobody front and act like they don't help contribute to it in some kind of way. Yeah. Like I said with the prison industrial complex, every time I go get a McDonald's coffee, there it is. I'm actually helping the prison industrial complex. The interdependency of how terrible the situation we're in, it to me, it requires for us to have a whole lot of compassion for not feeling bad. It's almost like sometimes, and I'll close on this. It's like for me, when people try to make, when whoever tries to make white folks feel guilty for everything that happened in slavery. No, fool, leave them alone. What are you doing differently that's changing the situation? Man, every white person ain't the cause of the plight of every black person. When usually it's ourself that's the first source of plight that we have to learn to overcome, to liberate ourselves through, then to have more of an abolitionist mindset about being well for myself to be more contributory in society in a way that's about civility. I brought it back 360, right?
You did. I like it. I like it. So I'm going to ask one more question and just wrap it up here. For anybody who's listening, you obviously have done a lot of work on this issue, the mindset, the unlearning. What advice would you give to anybody who is engaged in that and is still in that process or wants to start that process and engage? What advice would you have?
Something that my wife teaches me all the time is that I still need to continue to learn how to have very tough questions, make very tough conversations, without getting emotionally disturbed and without taking it personally. And without being, unafraid to look at what triggers that emotion. So, in an esoteric sense, we got a lot of shadow work to do. We got a lot of shadow work to do. We got a lot of work at looking at the places where we've kind of accepted lies as a truth expression that's really not our real face. That's really a mask. That's really where did you get that, and where did they get that from, and where did they get that from, and why do you still hold on to it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hey, and that's real. And so and that's to me reachable at any given state for anyone at their own pace and time, not on nobody else's clock.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to this work, it's a little less elegant than that, because if we don't move and do stuff, so it's a lot of tandem processing, right? But we're built for this. Come on, we've been around for millions of years.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yep.
Truth, I appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation just as much as the one the other day. I hope everybody else did as well. Again, thank you to Truth Mays for joining us today. We'll continue this. I think we have another conversation, I believe, next week or the week after. So be on the lookout for an invite for that. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. It'll be on YouTube if anybody wants to see it after this point. But again, thanks to Truth. Thanks for joining us today. I hope to have this conversation with you in person at some point in the future as well.
All right. Cool.
All right.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot, everybody.
Bless up, everybody. Thank you.
Great day.
Thank you. You too.